Hey, it's time for chapter 13 for Failing Forward. All right, so it says avoid the top 10 reasons people fail. Lord, deliver me from the man who never makes a mistake, and also from the man who makes the same mistake twice. Dr. William Mayo. I don't put much stock in the idea of luck. I think that I think that usually things go well or not so well for people based on their actions. I believe that for the most part, you create your own luck by working hard, practicing self discipline, remaining persistent, and making personal growth a daily priority. Add to that the blessings of a loving God, and you don't need to think about luck. However, a few years ago, I came across an article printed in the Los Angeles Times that almost made me change my mind about luck. Here's what it said: New York. Jilted, hammered in a car crash, and robbed, Lawrence Hanratty was named Friday as the unluckiest man in New York. Nearly electrocuted in a construction site accident in 1984 that put him in a coma for weeks, Hanratty lost the lawyers fighting for his disability claim. One was disbarred, two died, and his wife ran off with her lawyer. Holy cow. Hanratty, who has spent years fighting heart and liver disease, had his car wrecked in a crash last year. When police left the scene of the accident, he was held up and robbed. I say to myself, how much more am I going to be tested in life to see how much I can endure? Hanratty told the New York Daily News in a description of more than 10 years of agony that runs under the page one headline, Think you got it bad? Meet Luckless Larry. As if he hasn't tolerated enough hardship, 38-year-old Hanratty of Mount Vernon, New York, said an insurance company now wants to cut off his workers' compensation benefits, and his landlord has threatened to kick him out of his apartment. Depressed and suffering from agoraphobia, a fear of open spaces, Hanratty uses a canister of oxygen and takes 42 pills a day for his heart and liver ailments. Man, he's only 38. Is that what it said? That's crazy. But with help from neighbors and a New York State Assemblyman, he is not giving up yet. There is always hope, he said. Reading that story makes you want to try to find poor Lawrence to see if you can help him out in some way, doesn't it? I think the experiences of Lawrence Hanratty are not typical of most people who continually fail or experience continual ongoing adversity. Why? Because most of the time, the trouble we face is the result of our negative actions. It's our own fault. Are you ready? Are you ready to look inward? I don't know if I'm ready. The top 10 ways people get in their own way. Many people possess blind spots when it comes to knowing about themselves. Sometimes the blind spots apply to strengths, but more often people fail to see their weaknesses, and that causes trouble. If you don't know you have a problem, then you can't work to fix it. In the next several pages, I'd like to acquaint you with what I have observed to be the top 10 reasons people fail. As you read, please be open minded and try to see yourself and your shortcomings in the following descriptions. Be aware of recurring issues in your life. As you read, you may find your Achilles heel. By the way, the Achilles of ancient Greek myth was a warrior who was totally indestructible, except in one tiny spot on his heel, and that one flaw allowed his complete destruction. That's the way flaws work, so don't mentally minimize the amount of damage that a weakness can create or may create. Number one, poor people skills. By far, the greatest single obstacle to success that I see in others is a poor understanding of people. A while back, the Wall Street Journal printed an article on the reasons that executives fail. At the top of the list was a person's inability to effectively relate to others. I was talking to some people a couple of days ago, and they were complaining about not winning a business contract that they had bid on. It wasn't fair, one person told me. All the people involved knew each other, and we didn't have a chance. It's all politics. But what he went on to describe wasn't politics, it was relationships. Authors Carol Hyatt and Linda Gottlieb indicate that people who fail on the job commonly cite office politics as the reason for their failures. But the reality is that what they call politics is often nothing more than regular interaction with other people. Hyatt and Gottlieb assert most careers involve other people. You can have great academic intelligence and still lack social intelligence, the ability to be a good listener, to be sensitive toward others, and to give and take criticism well. If people don't like you, they may help you fail. On the other hand, you can get away with serious mistakes if you are socially intelligent. A mistake may actually further your career if the boss thinks you handled the situation in a mature and responsible way. How are you when it comes to working with people? Are you genuine and authentic, or do you continually put up a front? Do you listen carefully to others, or do you do most of the talking? Do you expect everyone else to conform to your wishes, your schedule, and your agenda, or do you look for ways to meet people on their terms? If you haven't learned how to get along with people, you may always be fighting a battle to succeed. Excuse me. However, making people skills a strength will take you farther than any other skill you develop. People like to do business with people they like. Or to put it the way President Theodore Roosevelt did, the most important single ingredient in the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. Number two, a negative attitude. I saw a cartoon that depicted a man getting his palm read by a fortune teller. As she studied the man's palm, she said, You will be sad, miserable, and poor until you're 30. Gee, the man replied hopefully. What happens when I'm 30? The fortune teller replied, Then you'll get used to it. Your reaction to the circumstances in your life has everything to do with your well being and your success. W. Clement Stone tells a story about a young bride who traveled with her husband to the California desert during World War II. Because she had grown up in the East, the desert seemed remote and desolate to her. Where they lived didn't make it any easier. The only housing they could find was a shack near a village of Native Americans, none of whom spoke English. She spent a lot of time there alone, waiting out the sweltering heat each day. When her husband was gone for a long period, she wrote her mother to say she was returning home. A few days later, she received this reply. Two men looked from prison bars. One saw mud, the other stars. Ooh, I want to read that again. Two men looked from prison bars. One saw mud, the other stars. Those words helped the young woman to see things more clearly. Maybe she couldn't improve her circumstances, but she could improve herself. She made friends with her Native American neighbors. She began working with them on weaving and pottery, and she took time to explore the desert and discover its natural beauty. All of a sudden, she was living in a new world, and the only thing that had changed was her attitude. If your circumstances constantly get you down, then maybe it's time for a change, not in your situation, but in your attitude. If you can learn to make the best of any situation, you can remove a formidable obstacle that stands between you and your dreams. Number three, a bad fit. Though we should always first examine our attitudes when we don't enjoy our circumstances, sometimes a change in situation is also in order. Sometimes a case of mismatched abilities, interests, personality, or values can be a major contributor to chronic failure. A good example can be seen in the life of film producer David Brown. He started out in corporate America and was fired from three different jobs before he realized that corporate life was not for him. After working his way up after working his way up in Hollywood and becoming the number two man at 20th Century Fox, he was fired after recommending a film that turned out to be a flop. Then he became an editorial vice president at the New American Library, but he was fired when he clashed with a coworker. Later, he was rehired by 20th Century Fox, but 6 years later was fired again along with Fox's president, Richard Zanuck. Brown examined his working behavior and determined that his outspoken, risk oriented ways didn't fit well in the settings where he had been working. He was too much of an entrepreneur to work in jobs with confining expectations. Although he had failed as a corporate executive, he was extremely successful when he pursued his own ideas with his former boss, Zanuck. He and Zanuck went on to produce many popular films, including the huge box office hit Jaws. Few things in life are more frustrating than being stuck in a profession or organization that doesn't suit you. It's like always having to wear shoes that are two sizes too large or too small. Are you a salesperson stuck in an accountant's job? Are you a corporate executive who would rather be home raising your children? Are you an engineer who would rather be pastoring a church? Are you an entrepreneur working for an organization whose idea of progress is moving backwards slowly? Evaluate yourself and your situation. If there is a poor fit, think about making a change. Number four, lack of focus. Bad things happen when a person doesn't focus. Let me illustrate with a story. One day, a businessman visited a small town florist shop to order flowers for a friend who was opening a new business. The floral shop owner was unusually busy and was scrambling to fill orders while she took the businessman's information. Later that day, the man arrived at his friend's grand opening and saw a big floral wreath with his name on it that said, "With deepest sympathy during this time of sorrow." The businessman was irate. He called the florist to complain and asked, "What in the world happened? Do you have any idea how stupid you make me look? Or you made me look?" "I'm so sorry," the shop owner said. "I was a little scrambled when you came by, but your situation wasn't nearly as bad as it was at the funeral home. That card said, 'Best wishes in your new location.'" Oh no. Anybody can make an honest mistake when things are hectic, but people lacking focus have trouble not because they're too busy, but because their priorities are out of whack. And that wastes their time and resources. If you go from task to task to task without making any progress, or you can't seem to reach a goal no matter how much effort you give it, examine your focus. No one can move forward without it. That's my main problem. Focus on my focus. Number 5, a weak commitment. For a long time, it seemed that apathy was chic, but effort and commitment seem to be coming back into style. And that's good because without commitment, you cannot accomplish anything of value. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe addressed the importance of commitment. Until one is committed, there is hesitance, the chance to draw back, and always ineffectiveness. The moment one definitely commits oneself, a whole stream of events issue from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and material assistance which no man could have dreamed would come his way. The last time you failed, did you stop trying because you failed? Or did you fail because you stopped trying? What was your level of commitment? Did you give the task everything you had? Did you go the extra mile? Did you put enough of yourself on the line to guarantee that you would give your very best? If you're committed, a failure doesn't mean that you'll never succeed, it just means you will take longer. Commitment makes you capable of failing forward until you reach your goals. Number 6, an unwillingness to change. Perhaps the most relentless enemy of achievement, personal growth, and success is inflexibility. Some people seem to be so in love with the past that they can't deal with the present. Not long ago, a friend sent me the top 10 strategies for dealing with a dead horse. I thought the list was hilarious. Number 1, buy a stronger whip. Number 2, change riders. Number 3, appoint a committee to study the horse. Number 4, appoint a team to revive the horse. Number 5, send out a memo declaring the horse isn't really dead. Number 6, hire an expensive consultant to find the real problem. Number 7, harness several dead horses together for increased speed and efficiency. Number 8, rewrite the standard definition of live horse. Number 9, declare the horse to be better, faster, and cheaper when dead. And number 10, promote the dead horse to a supervisory position. I bet you've seen just about every one of those solutions enacted in your place of work. But there's really only one effective way to deal with that problem. When your horse is dead, for goodness sake, dismount. One Calvin and Hobbes comic strip portrayed the way that too many of us perceive change. Calvin and his stuffed tiger friend were speeding down a hill in the boy's wagon. Calvin yelled back to Hobbes, "I thrive on change." Surprised, Hobbes remarked, "You? You threw a fit this morning because your mom put less jelly on your toast than yesterday." Calvin faced Hobbes and explained, "I thrive on making other people change." You don't have to love change to be successful, but you need to be willing to accept it. Change is a catalyst for personal growth. It gets you out of a rut, it gives you a fresh start, and it affords you an opportunity to reevaluate your direction. If you resist change, you're really resisting success. Learn flexibility or learn to like living with your failures. Number 7, a shortcut mindset. A common obstacle to success is the desire to cut corners and take the short road to success. But shortcuts never pay off in the long run. As Napoleon said, victory belongs to the most persevering. Most people tend to underestimate the time it takes to achieve something of value. But to be successful, you have to be willing to pay your dues. James Watt spent 20 years laboring to perfect his steam engine. William Harvey labored night and day for 8 years to prove how blood circulated in the human body. And it took another 25 years for the medical profession to acknowledge he was right. Cutting corners is really a sign of impatience and poor self discipline. But if you are willing to follow through, you can achieve a breakthrough. That's why Albert Gray says the common denominator of success lies in forming the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. If you continually give in to your moods or impulses, then you need to change your approach to doing things. The best method is to set standards for yourself that require accountability. Suffering a consequence for not following through helps you stay on track. Once you have your new standards in place, work according to them, not your moods. That will get you going in the right direction. Whew, that's hard to do. Self discipline is a quality that is won through patience. Psychologist Joseph Mancusi noted truly successful people have learned to do what does not come naturally. Real success lies in experiencing fear or aversion and acting in spite of it. Number 8, relying on talent alone. Talent is overrated, not because it doesn't have value, but because talent alone isn't enough to take a person through the multiple failures that life brings. Adding a strong work ethic to talent is like pouring gasoline on a fire. It's explosive. The great artists understand this, though some non artists mistakenly believe that talent alone carries them through. David Bales and Ted Orland explain even at best, talent remains a constant, and those who rely upon that gift alone without developing further, peak quickly and soon fade to obscurity. Examples of genius only accentuate that truth. Newspapers love to print stories about 5-year-old musical prodigies giving solo recitals, but you rarely read about one going on to become a Mozart. The point here is that whatever his initial gift, Mozart was also an artist who learned to work on his work and thereby improved. In that respect, he shares common ground with the rest of us. The greater your talent, the more likely you are to lean heavily on it and skip the hard day to day work of improving it. If you possess this negative tendency, put yourself on a growth plan so that you can make the most of your God given talent. Number 9, a response to poor information. Successful executives have in common the ability to make weighty decisions based on limited amounts of information, but they also have in common the ability to gather reliable information to use as they evaluate issues. General Douglas MacArthur knew this. He asserted, expect only 5% of an intelligence report to be accurate. The trick of a good commander is to isolate the 5%. As the pace of life and business increases, the difficulty of being able to collect and evaluate information will increase. In fact, Bill Gates' best-selling book, Business, Business and the Speed of Thought, was written specifically to address this issue. An example of what can go wrong when decisions are made on the basis of poor information is evident in the purchase of Rolls-Royce motor cars. Volkswagen and BMW battled each other to purchase Rolls-Royce from Vickers plc, and Volkswagen won the battle, paying $780 million for the luxury automaking company. But after the purchase was finalized, the buyers made a shocking discovery. Volkswagen owned the company, but not the rights to the name Rolls-Royce, which is synonymous with luxury cars around the world. The license for the name, it turned out, belonged to another company, Rolls-Royce plc, an aerospace company. Even worse, Rolls-Royce plc had ties to BMW. Guess who received permission to use the name? BMW, not Volkswagen. And it all happened because of poor information gathering. Yikes. Number 10, no goals. The last major cause of failure is an absence of goals. Don Marquis perceives that ours is a world where people don't know what they want and are willing to go through hell to get it. Joe L. Griffith believes a goal is nothing more than a dream with a time limit. Many people don't have goals because they haven't allowed themselves to dream. As a result, they don't possess a desire. If that describes you, then you must look deep within yourself and try to determine why you're on this planet. Once you've discovered that, you'll know what to shoot for. I'll talk more about this in the next chapter. If you can discover the weakness that weakens you, then you can start doing something about it. And that can change your life. I've seen that happen again and again and again in people who desire success. Let me tell you about one of them. Putting purpose before people. One of the people I rely on most at the Enjoy group is my good friend Dan Ryland. He and I have worked together for 17 years. For more than a decade, Dan was my right hand at Skyline Church, serving as my executive pastor. I couldn't have succeeded without him. When I resigned from the pastorate to lead the Enjoy group full time, I took him with me. Today, he serves as Enjoy's vice president and leadership development and church growth. To say that Dan is naturally purpose driven would be an understatement. He is highly organized and he goes after a goal with a vengeance. When I first met him, if he had dropped his briefcase and it had broken open, the contents would have fallen out in alphabetical order. But as is the case with many people, Dan's strength was also his weakness. Let's just say that because he was purpose driven, he was not the most relational guy in the world, going right past his work. Initially, Dan held the position of intern. I remember one day, soon after he started the job, I was standing in the office lobby having a conversation with a group of people, and Dan came in from the parking lot with his carefully arranged briefcase. He walked right through the group of us and didn't say a word. He strode down the hall directly to his office. I excused myself from the group and I followed him. Dan set his briefcase down on his desk, and when he turned around, he was surprised to see that I was standing there. Dan, I said, what are you doing? You walked right by us and you didn't say anything. Well, I have a lot of work to do, Dan answered, pulling out a stack of papers. Dan, I said, looking him in the eye, you just passed your work. I wanted him to understand that people came first to a leader. Making changes. For the next year, Dan and I worked together, and I mentioned him in the area of people skills. Dan worked especially hard. He was dedicated to improving himself, and every year he got better. Today, if you were to meet Dan, you would think that his ability to work with people is a natural strength because he is so good at it. He is now one of the finest pastoral leaders in the country. And if I have a tricky assignment that requires someone with exceptional people skills to carry it out, do you know who is on my short list of choices? Dan. And that has become possible because of his willingness to grow and change. He has taken a weakness and turned it into a strength. If you are dedicated to overcoming failure and achieving lasting success, then you need to be willing to do the same. Work on the weakness that weakens you, and there's no telling how far you'll go. So, your 13th step to failing forward, work on the weakness that weakens you. Everybody has weaknesses. Review the top 10 reasons people fail and determine whether you need to work on one of these areas. Or you may have a different issue that isn't listed here. Start improving yourself by talking to a trusted friend. Ask him to help you evaluate yourself in your area of weakness. Then put yourself on a growth plan to turn that weakness into a strength. The plan may include reading books, attending classes or seminars, or finding a mentor. Determine to put your plan into action and stick with it for a year. At the end of that time, go back to the friend who helped you evaluate yourself and ask the person to evaluate your progress. If you still need improvement, begin a second phase of growth, following it as long as you must to keep growing. So, what's your weakness? I have a lot. I feel like I related to all of those. So, I need to pick one and work on it. All right, so the recap of the steps. Number 1, realize there is one major difference between average people and achieving people. They fail a lot and they keep going. Number 2, learn a new definition of failure. Number 3, remove the you from failure. Number 4, take action and reduce your fear. Number 5, change your response to failure by accepting responsibility. Number 6, don't let the failure from outside get inside you. Number 7, say goodbye to yesterday. Number 8, change yourself and your world changes. Number 9, get over yourself and start giving yourself. Number 10, find the benefit in every bad experience. Number 11, if at first you do succeed, try something harder. Number 12, learn from a bad experience and make it a good experience. And number 13, work on the weakness that weakens you. All right, so on Monday, 14 is the little difference between failure and success makes a big difference. All right, oh my goodness. My kid's pediatrician is calling me like nonstop, and it's just for like rescheduling. It's driving me nuts. Okay, so that's chapter 14. And then there is chapter 15 and a 16. I think that might be it though. Yeah, so we just have 3 more chapters. We're doing good. so much goodness in here. I definitely need to work on lots of those weaknesses. I want to go back and just like, I don't know. I think maybe my commitment and lack of focus are my top two. What do you guys think? What's yours? All right. I'll see you Monday.